For more on how Democrats can handle these so-called grassroots protesters, let's turn to Democratic strategist Chris Kofinas. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Does it really take that much to hijack a town hall meeting, and how do Democratic lawmakers or other Democratic speakers combat that?
Unfortunately, it doesn't take a lot to disrupt these meetings, and I think that's the whole point. Listen, the Republicans and these grassroots groups that are clearly being backed by Republican groups and operatives, they have a very simple strategy. It's to delay, it's to disrupt, it's to disturb. It's basically to take over these town halls and make them a media spectacle and create this facade of what is opposition. The reality is the overwhelming majority of Americans want health care reform. There may be clear disagreements or discussions about what kind of health care reform we need, but the notion that we don't need health care reform is laughable. Now, in terms of what Democrats, I think, need to do, listen, it's a difficult thing. When you have a town hall of 150 people, 10, 20 can disrupt that. Listen, my perspective is a good strategy, shame. Shame them. And the way I think you can shame them, I would suggest to every Democratic member of Congress that has one of these town halls, bring one of your constituents who have suffered through this health care crisis, that can tell you a personal story, that can start that town hall telling those people in that audience what the consequences are when an insurance company cuts their coverage and their child couldn't get the treatment they needed. And let those protesters get up and fight that. I think that is a very powerful approach.
Would it be of any use to sort of foster a backlash against the phony backlash, to say, look, where exactly are you from? Have you ever been in this district before? Did you come here on a bus from another state? Is that of any use in those situations? Confront them?
Well, I mean, I think it helps, but the problem is, it's one of the things that I think the media is going to have to expose. I mean, what is clearly happening here is the Republicans know that the country has moved in a different direction, that it clearly wants to tackle these issues like health care reform. So they're trying to slow it down. You see that both in the legislative tactics they're using in the Congress, and now you're seeing that now in these grassroots tactics. They did the same thing, I think, in a weird way that's very reminiscent to what happened back with the 2000 election, and now you're seeing the very same thing. Have small groups disrupt it. I think exposing them is a good thing, but it's not enough. I think you have to tackle it head on, basically disprove their lies and their falsehoods, because the reality is when you explain to the American people the enormous benefits of this health care reform, that's going to control costs, that it's going to expand coverage, that we basically are going to tackle a problem that we cannot ignore anymore, people will support it. But you can't let a small group dominate the agenda or dominate that town hall in that case.
Well, all right. If you take the August recess as kind of collective town hall and media perceptions of town halls, you've got those, you've got TV, radio ads, you've got stunts we probably can't even imagine. You've got Rush Limbaugh, who might as well be funded by the Republican Party, reading whatever it is they hand him. Could this slip into a groove that cripples health care reform?
Well, it's possible, but I'm going to be optimistic about it. I think what you're seeing from the Democrats in terms of the strategy that's coming out of the Congress as well as the strategy out of the White House is a very aggressive strategy on multiple levels, both in the grassroots, the media, in terms of using, OFA, which is the grassroots arm of the Obama campaign, as well as other progressive groups. But let's make no mistake about it. This really is a battle for health care reform. And in terms of the next 4, 6, 8 weeks, it is the groups that are going to fight the hardest that I think are going to have an incredible influence in terms of who wins the agenda, both at the media level as well as the legislative agenda. So this is a real challenge, I think, to progressive groups, Democrats, to go out there and fight for the health care reform we all know this country needs.
The Democratic strategist, Chris Kofinas. As always, Chris, great thanks for your time tonight.
Thanks, Keith.